In the realm of Greek mythology, few stories are as tragic and beautiful as the tale of Persephone, the goddess who was abducted by Hades, the god of the underworld, to be his queen. But this wasn't just a tale of love or of loss. It was the ancient explanation for the changing seasons that affect our world even today. Join us as we unravel the myth of the abduction of Persephone, the devastating consequences that followed, and how the agreement between gods gave birth to the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Our story begins with Persephone, the beautiful daughter of Demeter, the goddess of the harvest. Persephone was the embodiment of spring. Her very presence brought life, joy, and abundance to the world. She was adored by all, especially her mother, Demeter, who cared for her deeply. Demeter, in turn, ensured that the earth was lush and full of crops, and every season, life flourished as the earth basked in her loving care. Together, they created a paradise on earth, one where the sun shone bright and the flowers bloomed endlessly. But unknown to Demeter, there was someone else who had been watching Persephone from afar, a god who lived deep within the earth, in a place far darker and colder than the world above. Hades, the god of the underworld, ruled over the realm of the dead. Unlike his brother Zeus, king of the gods, and his brother Poseidon, lord of the seas, Hades ruled a domain filled with shadows and souls. The underworld was his kingdom, a place of stillness and death, and he was a god not often seen by mortals or other deities. But despite his dark reputation, Hades was not heartless. His desire for Persephone was born not out of cruelty, but rather out of longing. The underworld, despite its wealth of riches and souls, was a lonely place, and Hades yearned for companionship. When he first laid eyes on Persephone, he knew he wanted her to be his queen. To Hades, Persephone was not just a goddess of spring. She was the perfect balance to his kingdom of darkness, the light to his eternal night. One day, while Persephone was gathering flowers in a meadow, the earth suddenly cracked open. Without warning, Hades emerged from the underworld, his chariot drawn by dark horses. Before Persephone could even react, Hades seized her and pulled her down into the depths of the earth. As the ground closed behind them, Persephone's screams echoed through the world, but it was too late. She was gone. Demeter, devastated by the loss of her daughter, was plunged into a deep sorrow. She searched the earth for Persephone, but the land was silent. The goddess of agriculture became consumed with grief, and in her mourning, she refused to let anything grow. The earth plunged into a terrible famine. The crops withered, the rivers dried up, and the people of the world suffered. Life, which had once flourished under Demeter's care, now came to a halt. For months, Demeter's grief consumed her. She wandered the earth, cloaked in darkness, refusing to let the earth produce any more life. Crops failed and famine spread across the world. Without Demeter's blessing, the earth had become barren. The mortals, desperate and starving, pleaded with the gods for help, but Demeter refused to lift her curse. Without her daughter, she had no reason to nurture the earth. The gods, worried about the suffering of the mortals and the earth's destruction, called upon Zeus, the king of the gods, to intervene. It was clear that only a divine intervention could end the suffering. Zeus, understanding that the earth's suffering could not continue, sent Hermes to the underworld to negotiate with Hades. Hermes was tasked with persuading Hades to release Persephone so that Demeter could restore the earth's fertility. Hades, though reluctant to let go of his queen, agreed to a deal. Persephone could return to her mother, but there was a catch. The deal that Zeus brokered was one that would ensure balance between the worlds of light and dark, life and death. It was decided that Persephone would spend part of the year with Hades in the underworld, and the other part with Demeter on the earth. For every seed that Persephone ate in the underworld, she would be bound to return to Hades for a portion of the year. And so, the myth of Persephone's abduction became the explanation for the changing seasons. Each year, as Persephone descends into the underworld, Demeter's grief returns, and winter blankets the earth with frost and cold. The crops stop growing and life retreats into dormancy. But when Persephone returns to the earth, Demeter's joy is restored, and the earth once again flourishes in the warmth of spring and summer. The flowers bloom, the crops grow, and life returns in full force. This cycle, which we now know as the seasons, was a divine arrangement that balanced the forces of life and death, light and darkness, joy and sorrow. Persephone, though initially a victim of abduction, became the powerful queen of the underworld, ruling alongside Hades with wisdom and grace. She was no longer just the goddess of spring, but a figure who bridged the gap between life and death, the living and the dead. Her story embodies both tragedy and transformation. Persephone's dual role in both the underworld and the earth also highlights the ancient understanding of the cyclical nature of life. The birth of spring, the death of winter, and the rebirth of the earth were all part of the same cosmic order. And so, the myth of Persephone's abduction continues to echo through the ages, explaining not only the changing seasons, but also the eternal balance between life and death. Thank you for joining us as we explored the myth of Persephone, a goddess who transcended her fate and became both a queen of the underworld and a symbol of hope for the world above. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more stories.